Hi, I'm Renee Smith.
And I'm Tammy Fellers. We're math consultants at ESDAC in Hutchinson, Kansas.
Today we're here to talk about two new decks of cards that we've produced for you. And one of them is a primary deck dealing with number sense, and the other one is a little bit more intermediate dealing with number sense. So we're going to start today with our deck that is entitled Sums of 5 and 10. And this again is for primary children, so most of the representations that they see are pictorial. We've done several different representations. We've used both a 5s and 10s frame, and then we've also used just quantities of objects on the deck. And so one of the things that we would ask students to do is just to identify what quantity they see on the card, because that would be one of those very beginning number sense skills. So if I were to show you this card, Tammy, what would you tell me was there?
2.
There's 2 ducks. Okay?
2 ducks.
2 ducks. And so we might ask a student, if they have progressed to this level, to not only represent the quantity, but represent it with a numeral. And so that would be a way to move them along and see what they actually know about this. We might then ask them, the next question might be, so how many more ducks would it take to make 5? So that we're actually working on that sums of 5. So,
and remember, one thing you want to have available for your students is those Unifix cubes or those counters, teddy bear counters. I mean, it doesn't matter what they are, but we want to have those tools available, because some kids may need to get their 2 ducks out, and how many more does it take? They keep bringing until they get to 5, and it's 3. It takes 3 more ducks to make 5.
At the very least, students may use their fingers, and that's absolutely what we would like to see, because we want to know that they actually are able to use tools if they need to, if they haven't actually learned those sums yet.
Correct.
So that would be the first one. A second representation that you see now is in that 5s frame, and you'll notice that we didn't put those the dots all together, so that we can extend this a little bit further. So Tammy, on this card, what would you be able to tell me?
I see 3 purple dots.
Okay, and how did you see them?
2 and 1.
2 and 1. So actually, we could be building on a skill here, because not only would that be a 3 plus a 2 could be 5, it could be a 2, 1, and the 2 empty spaces. So we could be working on multiple different equations that actually have the sum of 5. We also included in the deck that representation of 0, because little kids need to start to think about, when there's no quantity, that it actually has a numeral representation of 0. So we have that in the deck as well. We progress throughout the deck to make the skill more difficult. We progress to sums of 10, and so we would be still working on the exact same thing, but now we've got the quantities located in a 10s frame, so that, because we know how important that 10 is in our number system. And so we're going to work on sums of 10, because that helps kids so much as they progress up in the grades. So Tammy, what would you say about this card?
There are 3 dots.
And how did you see these 3 dots? Because we didn't put those 3 together as well.
And sometimes we did put them together.
Right.
Sometimes we didn't. This representation we didn't. I saw it as 2 and 1.
A 2 and 1. And we would go again with, she knows there's 3 there, whether she saw it as 2 and 1 or she subitized and saw 3 all together. And then we might say, okay, so how many more would it take to make 10? And so again,
probably going to have to use tools, whether those tools are my fingers, Unifix cubes, whatever the piece may be, because this deck is really meant to help build those facts. It's not meant to, it could be used to keep practicing those facts, but this is really an earlier representation of that. So whether I go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then have to go back now and count these 7, I need 7 more to make 10.
With all of our decks, we have those extensions that go along naturally. So there are things beyond what we've talked about here that are included on the task sheet for this deck that will extend this activity into many other uses of the deck of cards.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you ready to tell me about the other deck?
Okay, so the other deck we're going to talk about today is even odd arrays, and it is still really young in the elementary grade level, but it is a step up from our sums of 5 and 10.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about, we know how important it is for students to understand the difference between even and odd, and then the use of arrays in the multiplication system. So this is really before we begin 2 times 3.
Right.
This is
This
prior
is
to that.
repeated addition.
Repeated addition.
In second grade, in the Common Core standards, you have the even and odd starting to be very important, and actually the representation of arrays is introduced there.
So the first question I'm going to ask Renee is to write an equation using repeated addition with the picture that I'm showing you.
Okay, so I might see that as 2 plus 2 plus 2 if I'm looking at the rows. But I also, if I focused immediately on the columns, it could be an equation of 3 plus 3. Either way, I'm going to end up with 6.
Correct. And the student doesn't have to write both. That might be something that you can progress a student to. Just, is there another way to write that? But looking for one of those representations right now. So part of the deck is about repeated addition and students being able to write that equation. And then the other part of the deck is about even and odd. So first we ask the student, what is the total number? So Renee, what is the total number?
Okay, I might have to actually count that or use repeated addition. But I actually saw it as 3 groups of 4, so there would be 12 there.
Okay. And is that an even or an odd number?
Well, if we've done a good job of talking about even and odd prior to this, I know that each one of those has a partner, and so it would be even.
Okay. And if Renee had just said it's even, that partner or that teacher needs to have that follow-up question. How did you know it was even?
Right.
So that she can tell me, well, everybody had a partner, if she hadn't already given me that. And sometimes we have groups scattered out. Sometimes we have them in a form of array. And here's one that's in the form of an array with some missing pieces. So what is the total number?
Okay, so on this one, I'm going to have to be, it's a little more complicated. So I see 4 rows that have 4 in them, so that would be the 16. And then I see 4 more there, so I know I'm up to 20. And then I've got 1 extra, 21.
Okay, and is that even or odd?
That one's odd, because that guy doesn't have a partner. So.
Again, this deck also has both our decks have a task sheet with it, which gives you directions, gives you the direct link to the Common Core, and gives you extensions, as well as, we know some of you are using these decks in small group learning stations, some of you are using them whole group, but when we're in that small group learning station, we have some ideas for student accountability, because we want to know what learning is occurring in those activities when it's not the teacher lab table. And so the task sheet gives you some ideas of all of those different things.
It also has the answers, just in case you need them. Yes. Thanks for joining us today.